Welcome back to this week's episode of The Vet, The Bet, and The Casual. Man, I'm not gonna lie, watching so much UFC lately, I might have to upgrade that status from casual to, rookie.
Yeah, we'll see, bud.
Dick.
How you feel about this card, though? Because I know you've been doing a little bit of homework. I know you're getting excited.
Oh, yeah. This is one I'm pumped for. We've had this one circled on our calendar for a long time. Khabib and Gaethje. It's going to be a great one. But on top of that, there's a million other great fights on this card that I'm pretty excited about.
I love this guy. Rarely have I seen you this excited for a card. So I'm actually going to take just a quick look at the previous card. Can we just talk about how good Ortega was going to look? Only loss was against Holloway via that, doctor stoppage. He looked the part, man. He looked the part. And we definitely touched on that. And I think Korean Zombie felt what it's like to feel a championship level fighter. I think getting to that mindset of like, oh, this is what a loss feels like. Okay, never again. And so we're going to see like a new Ortega kind of like hit the octagon. And what did you think of that?
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, your analysis was spot on from the get-go, right? Even before we had this show, you had laid on Ortega, knowing that like there's a mismatch in odds here. They're a lot closer than these odds are reflecting, right? And so it was great to see you expose that. And another interesting takeaway from that is the Korean Zombie's response to every one of his losses. Like, he's obviously a very humble man, and I can appreciate that. But it's crazy how embarrassed he gets after he loses.
Yeah, I think that comes with that very, let's call it that Asian appreciation for martial arts, right? Like in terms of samurai history and things like that, losses are not taken lightly. In fact, limbs are probably lost and lives are probably taken. So I think with that being your heritage, I think that's where that defeat really hits home. And
it's the dedication to the craft and, the appreciation for it. So that was pretty interesting and cool to see, very humanizing for the Koreans. So kicking us off first on the early prelims is Joel Alvarez versus Alexander Yakovlev.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting fight, right? We got Alvarez, who's only lost twice. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He looked really good against Duffy. I liked the distance striking. I mean, the takedown that he tried to get was basically a finish via submission, and so he really does have great ability around the cage. And the thing with Yakovlev is he's your prototypical old-school wrestler. He's kind of old, been in the UFC since 2014. 3-5 record. He's got 2 losses against Maia and Usman, which is a pretty big deal. He's got wins against guys like Gray Maynard and Paul Daly. So there's things that you kind of like about him, but I think if you had to really sum him up, he's probably a gamer, right? A guy that's willing to take some damage, maybe get a little tired, and see what he's able to kind of eke out as a win. That decision kind of guy. Whereas with Alvarez, I get that vibe that he's a bit more of a finisher. And so I think with that edge, it's more creative, younger, longer. There's just a lot more that goes into this. And I just think from what I saw from a takedown perspective, I don't think it's going to go his way.
And 2 things that you touched on, as a casual person noticing this fight right away is, he's younger, he's faster, he's bigger, his length is, substantially longer, right? Like all of these things are playing into, kind of this matchup right here, and I think that's going to give Mr. Alvarez, quite the advantage.
And so, I mean, if I'm picking odds here, I'm going to say that Alvarez has to be a -290, a -280.
Yeah, and so actually that's what stood out to me as well, is just looking at the mismatch of these two and the line somewhat reflecting it, but at -200, I think there's still good value on Alvarez here.
And that's where the experience is coming into play, right? I think Yakovlev just has such an impeccable resume when it just comes to overall MMA fights. But like we said, what have you done for me lately? You've seen guys come in a bit rustier. I just think, that edge to Alvarez really has to do with what we kind of saw against a guy like Joe Duffy and what he can probably put together against a guy like Yakovlev, who, 3-5 in the UFC since 2014 is not the best thing we've seen.
No, and especially not over a 6-year time period. So, stay tuned. I think we're going to end up taking that one at a -200 and, maybe sprinkle in a few parlays there. So, up next, I know this is a fight you want to talk about. We actually saw Casey Kenny fight a few weeks ago and looked quite dominant in his performance. And so, now he's going to match up against Nathaniel Wood. And I know this is one you're excited about. So, tell us a little bit more about this one.
Yeah, so I think, the way the UFC structures their fights nowadays is we have this idea of like a prelim feature fight. And so that's what this would be. Two, what you would consider prospects nowadays. I think Nathaniel Wood, that English striker, people thought he would finish in his last fight, but he did go all 3 rounds, looked dominant all 3 rounds. I won't take anything away from him. So that's what I liked about him, mostly 4-1 in the UFC. But let's talk about Casey Kenny, right? One of the most hyped fighters coming into the UFC. One of those guys that it's like your favorite fighter's favorite fighter kind of guy, People knew about him from the scene. And so I really liked the idea of him putting up that 4-1 UFC record as well. Merab Devlishsky, remember him? That was the guy that we saw absolutely ragdoll, Ray Longo's boy. I mean, that's his only loss in the UFC. And so I just think when you look at the skills, when you look at what Nathaniel brings to the table, as much as I want to see him succeed, and both these guys are great, I think Kenny's just going to be a bit more of like that old school dog. I think he's going to be able to put the pressure on in more ways than one. I think the leg kicks and the strikes that Wood's going to throw is just not going to do as much damage or as much offensive pressure as he would need it to do against a guy like Kenny, who's also more versatile. So when I'm thinking about these odds, I don't think this should be more than a minus 300, but I would give Kenny the edge of, say, a minus 190 to a minus 220 along those.
Yeah, and you nailed it on the head. He's minus 185. Again, seems to be some value here for sure. We literally just saw Casey Kenny dominate. So, that's something we'll look out for sure.
I'm going to say at that minus 185, I mean, we don't really do this as much as we'd like, but that's a line where we might have to very seriously consider taking that by the end of this video.
That's one I can definitely see.
I'm very excited about that line, Pies. Like, that one really got me thinking there. Because I've been really excited about these lines overall because of how much we've kind of watched and tape on some of these kids. And that Kenny fight, man, we've seen him fight. I've seen Nathaniel Wood fight, and I know what he does against kind of like that lower tier competition. And Kenny's a gamer, man. Minus 185 seems low, so we're going to visit that very...
I was going to say, whenever Spooky gets a feeling like this, I wake up on Saturday and see he's a minus 225, minus 250. So let's avoid one of those scenarios and just take it early. So up next is a nice ladies fight. This girl's name is made for the UFC. Miranda Maverick is fighting Liana Jojua, and that name is built for the UFC.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. So she's a Georgian fighter. You know about those Georgian fighters?
Another Georgian fighter?
Yeah.
Where are they finding these guys, man?
Know,
Isn't
right?
that country like 1,000 people?
Right? They got Guram, Giga. Now, Jojua. And it's funny because you're always...
Them dancing names, yo. Them dancing names.
And you always bring up the girls. And I got to say, man, there's something about Jojua that I actually like. I think she's kind of cute. And she's also very deadly. And so for me, I think these are all things that I like to take away from the fights. But Maverick's young. She's 23. My understanding is she was actually on the verge of fighting for an Invicta championship prior to this fight getting booked. So I think she took the promotion to the UFC over kind of becoming, potential champion in Invicta. So she's got good fights to her name. Now, when we look at her fight against Pro Gonzalez, I liked what I saw in terms of versatility, poise. For how old she was, to be able to get out of certain positions, to be able to dominate for 3 rounds, it was a guaranteed win by the end of it. But there were moments. You know what I mean? There were moments where the veteran was able to get into surprising offensive positions. Sweeps off the cage, maybe for a slightly tired fighter, or even just a fighter that might not have known exactly what to do in that split second. And so it takes us to, looking at Jojua, who was obviously devastated from her first loss in her debut. Absolutely devastated. She laid on the ground there for a little bit, just pouring her eyes out. Comes out and breaks a girl's arm in her last fight. It is what it is. I think there's something about her that tells me that she's just a real gamer. Now, when we think about this from an odds perspective, I'm just a little surprised because I don't know what to think. Because when I'm thinking about certain prospects when it comes to females, they might get the edge depending on who they fought. So as much as I want to say that Jojua is the favorite, I actually think we might get some dog money on her because Maverick seems to be very highly touted out of this Invicta reign. And so final thoughts, I would say we got Maverick maybe at a minus 250, minus 275. It can't be more than that. And if it's less, I'm still considering Jojua here.
Yeah, your analysis on these Georgian fighters has been pretty spot on. If we go back to Giga, Guram, and it just seems like they get no respect in the odds. I mean, Guram in himself was, plus 300 last week. Giga 2 weeks ago was a dog that we rode. This one kind of goes in line with that. Maverick is a minus 360 favorite, and it just seems like these Georgian fighters get no respect.
And I think it's the ground game. I think they are definitely coming in as pure strikers. But if you look at the Guram fight, let's use that as a great example. When you think about what we thought about Gamrot going into that fight, what most people thought, I mean, he was very much dominated on the feet. Dominated might be a strong word, but he was beaten on the feet. And it was very difficult for him to get any kind of takedown. So I think when you really analyze it from that type of perspective, Giga, we keep talking about how people underestimate what he can maybe do from a defensive grappling perspective, and it shows in the odds. Plus 110 last time that hit. Guram was a very, very massive underdog in that fight, and that hit as well. So you bring up a great point with just how much they're undervalued, and I think it comes with this idea that they are just pure strikers. And I mean, in her last fight, she did break the girl's arm via armbar submission. I mean, I don't know. I think
it's not like the ground game isn't there.
Yeah, I don't even see much of a size difference. I do see a big potential discrepancy in wrestling. Like, this girl's powerful. Maverick is bringing a very powerful game. She's got cardio. She's got poise, man, for her age, the way she's able to reverse certain things, the way she's able to use momentum and get out of tough positions. These are the things that make champions. I'm not gonna, ignore that fact about her.
Discount that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think the odds are reflecting that. Now, was I surprised with how much? For sure. Maybe I'm bigging up Jojo so much because of my little crush on him.
All right, so up next we got Da Un Jung versus, there's a few fighters on this card who I've never seen a more accurate representation of their nickname, but this is one of them. Smiling Sam Alvey. This guy looks like he could get his face beaten in and still get up grinning.
Yeah, and it's like, what kind of grin, right? Like crazy man grin, like the Joker in Batman? Like, are you going to get up and say, you give me more? Or are you just like, hey, this is my life. I chose it. Let's keep going.
He definitely seems like that type of guy.
And you're 100% right. That is who he is. I mean, I don't even want to go over his record so much because he's just been in the UFC for so long. I do think he's a paycheck fighter in the idea that he knows deep down that he's not going to be getting, championship fights or anything like that. But for a guy like this, fighting for bonuses, fighting for a steady paycheck, like that's a proper living. And I mean, the one thing I want to say about him in this fight is use the wrestling. You come from Team Quest. Do you remember Dan Henderson? American wrestler, such a big, so he kind of originates from that long line of, American fighters making their way around Japan and all these things, and who excelled in the wrestling game. It really makes you wonder if he's not going to do what Smiling Sam Alvey loves to do, and that's stand there and trade for days. Now, you're going to love this guy. Jung just throws, man. He loves throwing. He's a finisher. Yeah. Oh my God, he's an absolute finisher. Power in his hands. I mean, the Kadesi Ibragimov fight, I would say the guy stood there and took maybe cumulatively 40 to 50 punches in 2 rounds before just like tiring the man out from punching himself out. It was just a really fun fight to watch. And I think from a props perspective, from a bonus perspective, I think these guys are very much in line for a fight night bonus. There's a lot of fights like that, which is what makes it so interesting and fun. But, Sam Alvey just split decision lost to Ryan Spann. I mean, I just don't see much from him in terms of, wanting to get better. So his only tail of the tape here would be use the wrestling, try to get this guy down, tire him out. By the 3rd round, his power doesn't really look like it should be what it is. I mean, because he kind of fades himself out in the first couple rounds. But again, he's very technical. He's got power for days. And I think Smiling Sam Alvey kind of keeps his chin out a little bit sometimes. And it's the kind of guy you don't want to do that with because he seems to take advantage really, really, really well. And, his only 2 losses were more than 5 years ago, and he's never been knocked out. So in terms of a bad fight...
so I was just going to say, in terms of a little foreshadowing there, we like to look for odds on dudes where we're watching a fight and we're like, this guy isn't minus 300. He's not minus 400. Like, these two are a lot closer. And to just do a little foreshadowing here, it seems like this is going to be one of those fights where maybe we have that view, but in the end, the minus 400 is still going to prevail, even though he may not be a minus 400 visually. In terms of the difference between quality of fighters, it looks like that Jung is going to kind of solidify his response there and pull out the win.
So wait, did you just tell me that he's a minus 400?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Why'd you ruin that for me? I was looking forward to that one.
Why can't that be your reaction?
I'm a little...
That was as genuine as it gets.
I'm a little disappointed.
So what were you hoping there?
No. You didn't let me guess because I was going to guess that. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry, man. I mean, I didn't mean to disappoint you, but my excitement was there. So given that theory, do you think this will be a fight where there will be a visible mismatch and we're watching a minus 400 fighter?
Yes. That's why I wanted to guess. That's why I'm angry. That's why I think that I wish I heard that line and I guessed it. You know, it would have made me feel good. But I think Alvey has zero chance. I think unless he uses the wrestling, he does not have the power to knock this guy out early, I don't think. And it's just weird because I've seen him rocked, but I just haven't seen him lose. But he's been nailed. And that's the thing. You go back to the minus 400, it's like, do I just not believe in Simon Alvey that much? Maybe, which makes that maybe a biased bet. So, you know, the wrestling and maybe that lucky punch factor maybe makes him better than a minus 400. I think that's what we're going to have to wait and see.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to see a nice Jung win here. So going into the next fight, we got Alex Oliveira versus a scary-looking Asian-Russian man in Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Yeah, so we got, Brazilian Cowboy, and I love this guy. So he took this fight on short notice. So that's the big thing with him. Sometimes weight cuts are problems for him. I mean, I don't think this will be such an issue. He's been active enough to be in camp and to be training, that kind of thing. So I don't think he's going to be coming in unhealthy by any means. But, taking a guy like Rakhmonov. So here's the funny thing. While I was doing these notes, of any fighter on this card, I have watched the most tape on him. And here's why.
Okay.
The man looks like Kazushi Sakuraba. And I know you might not know who that is, but there's this legendary Japanese fighter who's fought in all the big names that you do know. It just so happens, I think he's Dana White's favorite fighter to this day.
One of my favorite fighters ever, Kazushi Sakuraba.
You can find out for sure, but probably his favorite fighter of all time, my definite favorite fighter of all time, looks just like him. Oh my God.
Wow.
And he's a Kazakh
That's
fighter.
high praise.
Yeah, he's a Kazakh fighter. So, I mean, the reason why I like him is he looks the part. He's incredibly young. He's incredibly young. And when he was fighting at M1, I think he had a lot of finish potential. Problem is, in some of his highlights, I found he was getting taken down a little bit easily. He's so reckless. He's constantly going for submissions, and he's constantly going for punches, where he kind of leaves himself out there. And I think
exposed.
And Cowboy is just, Cowboy came onto the scene and really kind of took us by storm, but at the same time, he climbed the ranks in a very elegant way from an MMA perspective, from a UFC perspective. We all fell in love with him. He became that, household name to the not so everyday fan. So like the hardcores, they know this guy. I'm really happy for him for so late in his career to be able to do that. Now, taking on a prospect like this, I think Rakhmonov has a good size and distance striking ability to kind of keep him at bay. So I would attack the body. This is the kind of fighter where the body might be weak, get him tired, get him struggling for those takedowns, because that's when you might be able to take him out. Second, third rounds. Don't stand and try to trade with him too much because he's creative. That's what you want to avoid, right? He's going to be trying to throw some power shots at you. And I think Rakhmonov looks good enough for his age against that competition. So now it's going to be a true test. And what I love about this fight for him is, despite being so young, he has the opportunity to take on such a big name on short notice. Even with that, it's a big fight for him. And so looking at the odds, even with the short notice fight, I can't help but feel that Cowboy has to get the edge in this, just based on Rakhmonov not being known. and Cowboy being who he is. So a minus 190 to a minus 230 makes sense to me here.
It's actually even smaller. It's minus 155, and that kind of reflects, the respect that Shavkat is getting, with his history. It's kind of like he has all of the tools. Now incorporate the IQ, and you can get there,
Wow. So you know what that tells me? I don't even know if we'll touch this fight publicly, because I thought I was being generous for Cowboy, and it sounds like I was. And so for this fight to be that close, it just tells me that if we lay on this, we're laying on such a small mistake. If I want to lean the underdog and the new guy who I really do believe in becoming a somebody in the UFC, it's just this fight. Of all fights, he's long. He also can strike from a distance. He's powerful. He likes to go crazy. Are you able to deal with that crazy level of a UFC fighter? That's where I put him at a minus 220, minus 230, that experience, that ability to be in an octagon. The ropes. Let's talk about M1 having ropes. So there's a big difference there. This guy loves to play off the ropes and be in the corners and things like that. So these things don't exist for him anymore. This is a you can't do these things. And so I found that a lot in his fights, and I just think, man, Cowboy now at a minus, sorry, you said minus 155?
155, yeah.
Oof, I can't ignore that,
Yeah, exactly. While, he has a shot, there's the odds don't reflect that enough for us to want to sprinkle on the dog there.
Exactly.
So next up, I know you really enjoy this man, and also another dude whose nickname is perfect for himself. The skyscraper, Stefan Struve, who sits at a towering 6'11". I don't think I've ever seen a 7-foot UFC fighter before. And he's fighting Tai Tuivasa.
So I got stories upon stories upon stories with these two guys, okay? Let's start with our boy Struve. Last fight. All right, remember our boy Big Ben Rothwell? Remember Mr. Doggy Dog?
Oh, yeah.
So this guy goes into this fight. This is, if you think Big Ben Rothwell's on levels with that kind of like aura and universe, this man has already had health conditions. Stefan Struve. Like, I want you to know that this man has been fighting since he was since 2009. He's 32 right now.
Holy. Wow.
Take that in. He's been fighting since 2009.
Since he was like 20.
Yeah. And so, in terms of everyone he's fought in the UFC, I mean, he's seen it all. Okay? Goes and fights Big Ben Rothwell in his last fight. I mean, takes a low blow, a massive one in the first round. He recovers, takes almost all the time, goes into his corner, comes back. Takes another one in the second round. Another low blow from Big Ben. Big Ben's throwing these massive kicks, bro. Just nailing him in the crotch. And everyone's like, God.
Does this guy have a skyscraper down there, too? Like, what's going on?
Maybe this guy, they're all like, maybe this guy deserves to take a point right now. Like, no, they let it go. Bro, this last kick. It's like if Ben wasn't aiming for it, everybody thought he was at the end of it, but he just nails him. And we're talking like...
He went straight Draymond, eh?
Oh, talk about skyscraper? Oh, he was flying saucer, really. Like, just in the air, borderline, like, horizontal from the blow, on the floor. Just, it's funny because I felt like the referee was kind of telling him to get on with the fight or kind of push the fight a little bit. But he took his full time. Clearly wasn't himself. Bro, within a minute, he got pounded up against the fence and got knocked out.
Oh, wow.
So there was a point taken. Big Ben Rothwell's like, you know what? That first round, I don't even know if I won it. It's probably close. This round, I just lost that point. Well, I'm going balls to the wall.
Yeah.
And he gets it. So Stefan Struve is Mr. Unlucky. He is the fighter that everyone who's been watching the sport since that time is like, wow, 6'11" heavyweight fighter. How have you not found a way to utilize this to your advantage?
Yeah. Your reach is at least 10 inches than any other opponent you're facing.
And it's incredible how terrible his development has been. And it's unfortunate that, towards the end of his 20s, he was already experiencing, health issues that could potentially keep him out of fighting forever. And so let's go quickly into, and the best part is when you think about Big Ben, we talked about the dog and all that stuff. He has to explain himself after all that. And our boy Stefan Struve was interviewed. And do you know what he described as taking that leg kick from Big Ben Rothwell? He said it felt like giving birth to a Charizard.
Come on.
Yeah. I don't know where he came up with that explanation, but he described it as giving birth to the biggest dragon-sized level Pokemon. And he experienced it 3 times. So, I mean, how he decided to come back to that fight, I don't know. He should have just taken his whole time, or maybe even been like, you know, call this, like, my nuts are in my fucking throat. Like, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. Straight Manu Ginobili over here.
Yeah, and so Tuivasa, I thought, similar to Stefan Struve, but I thought his rise might be a little bit quicker. He had good striking for the division, but he's extremely out of shape. And for his age, you'd expect a little bit more of just that kind of focus. Sorry, not on him being healthier, but just the idea of maybe trying to lose the weight while you can. Kind of thing. Yeah, and so he's looked like he's losing a bit of the weight as he keeps going. So I'm kind of hoping, looking at the weigh-ins, you know, if he's looking trimmer, I do believe he can get the finish here. It's just when I see the way he fights, he kind of will tire himself out. You know, I don't know if you remember our boy Spivak, but he did fight him, and he looked pretty good in the first. He was landing a lot of power shots, but I felt that Spivak told himself, like, I can take these shots. I'm not getting knocked out by them. So he kept taking them. And by the second round, you know, Tuivasa looked a little tired. This guy was able to get him to the ground. And he was up against the fence in a position where, like, he actually could have maybe saved himself from this arm triangle. But he kind of moved away from the fence, and Spivak was able to actually squeeze in between the fence and him and finish it. And all he had to do was really tuck himself in there. And it looked like he got tired. He got sloppy. And so a guy like that can lose to Stefan Struve. So for me, it's like, what kind of version of Tai Tuivasa am I going to see? And that's where I think, you know, as I always say, the weigh-ins, the face-offs, like, I do a lot of my picking based on what I see on Friday. And so I think this is going to be one of those. But at the same time, if I had to pick a favorite, I would almost, you know, just poor Stefan Struve, but a knockout win by Tuivasa just seems where Vegas would take this.
And, you know, this is definitely one of those ones where I think the line is going to be shifted based on the weigh-ins, based on how these guys are looking. It's pretty much a pick right now. It's minus 125 in Struve's favor. And I think exactly what you said, you know, Vegas themselves are waiting to see that weigh-in to, you know, kind of move that line in either direction.
Okay, that's a very interesting line. And you know what? From an experience perspective, like, there's no doubt in my mind that Stefan Struve can win this fight. But if Tuivasa has put the time in to his training camp to be better than Stefan Struve at this fight, I very much believe he can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the next one up, I'm actually very much looking forward to. I have a feeling these two dudes are just going to swing. Mm-hmm. But it's Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelaba. So, yeah, I believe these...
You got it. No,
I'm trying here, man. I'm trying.
You've been smashing. So you remember Hulk at all the weigh-ins? You see Hulk.
Yeah.
This is the Hulk. So do you have...
Don't miss this weigh-in.
Yeah. Hey, don't miss this weigh-in. And frankly, do you remember the last fight? I might even get you to pull that up right now. It's not long. Trust me on that one. But Ankalaev...
Yeah, let me pull it up right now.
Yeah, pull up number 1 between these two. So in that time, Ankalaev's a 4-1 UFC fighter. I really like his striking, especially for some of these Russian fighters that we've seen a bit more of the wrestling style from. He's very accurate. He likes to throw hard. He's got good kicks on his in his arsenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did he stop that?
Yeah, right? The guy, there's nowhere near enough time between the referee stopping it and Cutelaba's reaction that you cannot tell me that man was not fully acting. Like, that's insane.
100%. He looked cartoon stunned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like guys are always like playing
over your head for a second and then just immediately comes back. How do you stop this fight?
Yeah, I truly was shocked by it. You could, if I can tell from my seat here in Guelph, Ontario, that this man is faking that entire process.
Stunned.
Yeah. Did you see how Cutelaba was throwing those punches? That was a complete bait scene. He was waiting and waiting. Then, yeah, he was throwing guns, bro. So I felt really, really taken aback by the stoppage. I did see that fight playing out to be Cutelaba being a bit more tired by throwing those kinds of strikes and kind of playing around a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, these overhand haymakers.
Yeah, see, the thing with him, he's 4-4 in the UFC. He's fought really good competition, so that's where, from a betting perspective, it's just hard to really pick a guy here. But if you told me that I could get Ankalaev at, say, you know, a plus 150 to a plus 190 underdog, I'm probably laying that. I think from an energy perspective, he's got a good edge in the striking department. I think if his ground game holds up against a guy like Cutelaba, who does have sound all around game, good experience on his belt. It seems like it could go that way, but looking into lines, I can't help but feel that this man's going to be a minus 200 plus favorite.
Sorry, you think who's going to be the minus 200 favorite?
Cutelaba.
So we're actually getting those dog odds on him. It seems like there's a lot of value being placed in this quote-unquote knockout fight in their original one, because Ankalaev is actually near a minus 300 favorite. It's 280. And, that just seems a little strange for a rematch. This is definitely going to be one of those fights where we're watching and don't see that much of the mismatch there.
Yeah, because I'm just disappointed from those odds, because I would have loved to lay on Ankalaev. And so, again, maybe going back to some of my old odds where they're generating a bit of edge from that, getting away from that thought process. I mean, you're 100% right in saying that you can't use that last fight as the means to an end of that line. But I'm a little surprised that they believe way more than me that he has the all-around skill to kind of win this fight. Because his striking is there. I think he's the better striker. Technical striker, it's there.
Oh, wow.
So that's the part that kind of scares me, right? I could see him being – I really thought he'd be a plus 150 because of maybe some poor BJJ and experience. That was my guess.
Perfect. So on to the next one. This is a nice ladies fight on the main card. It looks like this one just got together. We got Lauren Murphy, who looks like she's about to go discipline her kids after this fight. And she looks mean, man. And she is fighting, it looks like a 15-year-old boy that they pulled off the street last week in Lilia Shakarova.
Mr. Casual throwing some bows. I'm going to let you have that one because, God. She's making her short notice debut. I don't even want to spend too much time on this fight because I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen pretty much all of her major fights. I think that she got better towards the later part of her career. She's a bit more, push forward style, likes to throw big punches, but she's kind of reckless. Doesn't seem like she likes to go to the ground at all. And when we're talking about a fighter like Murphy, she really does have, she's got that experience on her edge. And we're talking, she's supposed to fight Cynthia Calvillo. So when you're telling me that you're supposed to fight Cynthia Calvillo, but you got, a short notice fighter like Shakarova coming in, I don't, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this fight based on all-around skill. I see this being a potentially boring decision unless, Lauren can get maybe a ground finish. I don't know if either of these girls are potentially getting knocked out. So let's say Lauren Murphy minus 280 to a minus 320 favorite.
345, you're right on the right track there, so... we don't need to spend too much time on this one.
Yeah, we're getting. Let's say that Vegas is getting a bit better, though. Let's give them that. Let's give them the edge that they're getting a bit better at calling some of these lines. Because if you take in how we talk about them, we're clearly leaning that way too. So the fact that they're the fact that it's almost like talk about Vegas juice, that's literally where it exists right now.
Yeah. So one we got upcoming is a really jacked man in Philip Haas versus, kind of a more unknown fighter in Jacob Malkoun. So kind of educate me, my friend.
Yeah, so Jacob Malkoun, Australian fighter, 4-0 in MMA overall. So right now we know that he's fairly new to the sport. Could he have been doing amateur fights for a while? Maybe he's like our boy Rakhmonov, but being 20-something and having that many fights is different. This is a very much a new fighter. What I love about Phil Haas is we saw him perform on Dana White's Contender Series. I think he lived up to the hype in terms of what we thought he was good at. In terms of journeyman status, I think he's proven that he deserves this UFC shot. So for me, I just think that there's zero chance that – I honestly think that Phil Haas could be the biggest favorite on this card.
Yeah, and it sounds like he has an opportunity here that he definitely wants to take advantage of and will be very motivated for this. So we're actually getting decent odds. He is a pretty big favorite, but minus 270 is not, one of your minus 400s.
Yeah, wow, okay. So Jacob Malkoun, he must have probably finished these fights, and I must not have caught the actual highlights here, but from what I've seen, that is a little bit interesting.
A betting mismatch, right?
Yeah, Phil Haas, in terms of just what we've seen and him really living up to the height on, something like we would consider cable television these days, it's just very surprising to see us get, Paisan, bro. I don't want to get excited for the wrong reasons here, but this blows my mind. And so
my reasons.
I don't want to take too much away from Jacob Malkoun, but I really am shocked by that. I think I might actually have to go and watch more tape to see if I really missed anything. But from what I saw, I mean, we got a nice build here. We got a nice power striker, hungry man. Like this is a guy that really is ready for a shot in UFC. And so, I mean, let's see what they bring to the table. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add from a betting perspective here, but I mean, debut fighter, such a tough fight. It really shocks me.
Yeah, and for this to be such a high-profile one, the motivation for Haas will be there. Like you said, journeyman, he will want to take this one down. So from an odds perspective, I think this is one that, we can sprinkle into a few parlays and feel pretty good with.
Yeah, it's just really shocking to see something like that. And maybe that's why it's on the main card. Maybe there's something we're missing there. But we're definitely going to find out more about this fight. But if we don't find anything by today's end, you can consider Phil Haas a lock.
Yeah, parlay that with everything. So.
Yeah.
The next one has me super excited. I think there's going to be a lot of haymakers thrown on this one. So it's Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris.
Yeah, so I mean, Walt Harris, unfortunately, is the one fighter that had the daughter incident happen. I remember talking to you about that before we started recording, but it's sad to see that he couldn't get that win. I mean, just for that whole situation against Overeem, but nothing to take anything away from Overeem. I mean, like, he's a gamer. He's ready for a title shot, and he just has to keep trying to prove himself in the big fights that actually matter. And so Walt Harris, for me, is just a little top-heavy, I think, against an all-around type of fighter. And getting to the ground and really grinding him out can become a massive problem. And I mean, he's got a heavy heart. There's a lot of things on this man's mind. I mean, there's a lot of reasons we can point to the tiredness, the stress that plays into maybe that fight, and maybe that plays a part into Overeem's ability to just control him so well on the ground. But Volkov likes to throw. And I mean, he doesn't really get knocked out that much. The one time we saw him get thrown was my boy, Black Beast. He got him nicely, man. Towards the end of the round, he was losing that fight. Volkov could have easily just kept his distance, bro. Kept his distance and won that fight. But why are you going against my boy Derek like that? Derek don't take shit from nobody. He just came right out and said, okay, you want to actually try and knock me out? Well, here's this. Pew! Psh,
yeah.
Game done. Probably one of my favorite fights of all time. Those little mistakes, I think, can happen against those kinds of fighters. I just don't think we're seeing that type of knockout power against him. So
in Walt, yeah.
Yeah, I just think Walt, he's just not the – unfortunately, he's just not the overall skilled MMA fighter. I would love him to be at this point of his career to be able to give him some.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy you want to root for,
Yeah, and so right now I can see him just being a plus 180, a plus 170, a plus 180, maybe a plus 200 underdog, but – I mean, I think between a plus 150 and a plus 200 is a fairly good range for him in this fight with some knockout power.
Yeah, and I think kind of Vegas is playing into that feel-good story, that motivation, that kind of stuff, because the odds are a little bit closer than we would expect. He's only a plus 135 underdog in this.
Wow.
Volkov's a nice minus 155 favorite.
Yeah, I think that might be a huge lay for us. I mean, going back to the fight we just spoke about from the prelims, I mean, those are two lines that stand out to me a lot that make me very, very much want to consider laying immediately, because the skill level, experience, and just overall, I mean, tenacity to kind of go in there and be able to just deal with whatever comes at you. I don't think Walt Harris can bring that same fire to the table. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think Vegas is giving him a bit more bump than I am.
Yeah, again, we touched on it earlier, but I think similar to Casey Kenny, I think this might be one where we wake up Saturday morning and Volkov is sitting closer to a minus 200. So
yeah, man, I would totally agree with that.
Let's move into that co-main event. So the co-main event, we got the journeyman Robert Whittaker, has a lot of experience in the UFC. He's fighting Jared Cannonier. Tell me a little bit more about this one.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't really like fighters more than this. Whittaker is your, gamer type of fighter. Such a good guy. Doesn't really like talking shit. He's such a nice guy. He's just such a nice guy.
He's a professional.
You just don't want to see him lose. And I think the loss to Israel was a worthy foe, if you will. So now he's at that point where he's kind of got to prove himself again. What I don't like about this fight is the power that comes against him.
Okay.
So Jared Cannonier, let's just quickly talk about my man, the Killer Gorilla. So this guy started as a heavyweight, okay? So started as a heavyweight, found immense success, but then obviously competition goes up. We know what happens, right? So when you're not a natural heavyweight and you start to face real heavyweights, you start to see what a real heavyweight should feel like, especially at the UFC level, and you take those notes, right? So we saw him even go down to light heavyweight and find some success, but again, maybe he's a little too heavy. He's not moving as quick as he'd like, but here we go. Now we're seeing him fight at a middleweight class, and this is not only the best version we've ever seen, but he's now fighting championship level. He looks amazing. The speed, the power, the leg kicks. There's so much to talk about from an offensive perspective that makes me just a little concerned for Whittaker. Just a little. I do think Whittaker can be the quicker fighter. It's just he can't be the type to make mistakes from a striking perspective, because we have seen Whittaker get clipped against multiple fighters. Now, this might be one of the more powerful middleweights on the planet when it comes to UFC fighters, at least. So,
yeah, clearly, if he's fighting in heavyweight, now he's in his zone,
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm going to assume that Whittaker's coming in between a minus 190 and a minus 260 type of favorite. And if it's anything towards the higher end or even higher, I mean, I can't help but want to sprinkle the Killer Gorilla and maybe even the under, because those would likely go hand in hand. But I mean, I'm sure you're going to blow my mind here with something that might tickle my fancy.
I was going to say, what if they are much lower than you expected? It looks like Vegas has the exact same thought process as you and is giving Jared a lot of credit for, going back into what is probably his comfortable, weight class. And it's actually a pick'em. He's a minus 120 favorite. Like, it's nothing. It's a pick'em.
Wow. That's crazy respect for Jared Cannonier. And, good for him. Like, congrats to him. Like, if you're being viewed even by Vegas as the equivalent to a Robert Whittaker, who knows that a win here is going to get him that rematch against, what should be his title reign in his mind. So I'm really excited to watch these guys go at it. I think it's going to be highly technical, but powerful. I think we're going to see good kicks thrown. I think we're going to see Whittaker potentially have to utilize all of his MMA skills, including wrestling, to maybe take this home, because Cannonier is going to bring some power. And unfortunately for Whittaker, you can be the best fighter on the planet, but chin is chin, glass is glass, and you just have to hope that you can keep it down, keep it hidden, and just play your game, right? 3-round fight. I think when it comes to picking people apart, he can do it, but Jared is fast now. And he's powerful.
Yeah.
He's bringing heavyweight level power to the middleweight division, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so stay tuned for that one. It looks like Arlene might be, picking an under here, so kind of stay tuned for that one. Mm-hmm. All right, so we got the main event here, the one that everyone is excited about, Khabib versus Gaethje. We've been waiting years for this fight, years. The respect level I have for Gaethje not taking this interim belt. He wants the real thing here, so kind of, educate us a little bit more on this one.
Here, no. I'm a little excited here. And so because this is a fight that I know you're excited for too, we're going to switch it up today. And I'm going to let you take the floor, because I know what I might have to say might even differ from what you have to say. So I'm curious with what you've looked into and where you're coming from, because you know the line. You don't have to tell me, but I am curious to see where you're coming from. Mr. Casual.
Well, initially looking at this fight, it seems like Gaethje's getting a lot of respect out there, you know? A lot of the pros, even your average fans, are saying, this is going to be Khabib's hardest test. This is going to be the one where he struggles the most, all that kind of stuff. For me, from what I've seen of Khabib, the focus I see of this man, the time he puts in to study his opponent, the respect level he actually has for his opponents, I just think that's all going to play a huge factor into this. Similar to what we were talking about earlier, I don't think we're going to see a true mismatch out there in terms of, one person really dominating or anything, but I just believe that Khabib has enough tools in his arsenal and enough mental strength to kind of, not take this lightly, know that this is his best opponent, and, kind of do enough to win over those judges.
Yeah, so like let me piggyback kind of what you're saying here. So let's quickly say that I completely agree with what you're saying about Khabib as a fighter, as a person, as a human, and all that. Which is why, for me, if I had to guess the odds based on that, I know that they're probably even closer than I think they should be, only because of who Khabib is, regardless of who is fighting him. And that's where Gaethje comes into play. Like, this is my pick, right? Like, this is who I believe can beat Khabib if someone can beat him.
Is able to.
Yes, because at the end of the day, there's no one going down the list. Poirier is one of the best fighters in the UFC right now, pound for pound, I think, because he's now showing in weight classes that he can kind of move up and down and really give people a run for their money. So Gaethje lost in his old style before he really got defensive. What we saw from him against Ferguson is a big deal. It's a very big deal. Absolutely. So my biggest fear for Khabib here is I think people are going to underestimate how good of a striker Khabib is. But people are going to underestimate how good of a wrestler Gaethje is. This is an All-American who is choosing to stand with everybody. He could potentially be the best wrestler in most of his fights up until now, maybe all of them. But he's choosing not to use it for the style he likes to do, for the style he wants to do for the fans, for being that prize fighter he loves being. You know, all the power to him because of how good he is at it and how great he's getting at it. You know, like, that's the best part. I'm seeing improvement to a championship level, which scares me because his striking is that good. His power is that good. So if you tell me that Khabib has fought someone this good, I just don't know, because I think Poirier is good, but can Poirier beat this level Gaethje? Maybe. That's how I feel. That's really how I feel about that. And so I would expect Gaethje to be a plus 300, plus 350 underdog, maybe more. But I actually can see it being less because of what you just said, public perception, and honestly, people kind of underestimating the rest of Khabib's game because of that tone.
Yeah. Or like you were saying, underestimating the amount of tools that Gaethje has in his arsenal as well, right? The versatility. This man can stand with the best of them. If he needs to, he can go on the ground, right? So there's not going to be any point in this fight where we're like, oh, he's completely outclassed, you know?
So in terms of, you know, don't say the number yet, but let's have a good back and forth here. But, you know, I kind of told you that tool that he does have, that the average fan who's just watching the fights can't really see. So whether Gaethje is using it for defensive ability to stay off the ground and just keep the fight standing, or if he just doesn't give a shit and wants to keep throwing with people, I mean, as a guy who believes so much in that Khabib wrestling and even the striking, I mean, from what you've seen from Gaethje, I'm really curious how you feel about what we kind of just talked about, what I just told you about Gaethje, because that's the most intriguing part, and I feel like no one really knows it.
Yeah, and so, you know, you touch on a good point, and my initial reaction is not about the man's opponent. It's about the fact that Khabib takes his time and is very meticulous with his approach. He's literally Andy Reid coming off of a bye. You know what I mean? That preparation, all of that kind of stuff, it makes it very tough for an opponent to dominate him enough to either get a knockout or to get a decision, right? You actually have to beat this man to strip him of the title. And so, you know, I agree with everything you're saying. The thing that kind of stays in the back of my mind is how meticulous this guy is, how much time he's had to prepare for this fight. And nothing that Gaethje does should surprise Khabib.
So my only counter to that is the way Khabib strikes. I love his offensive ability to be as accurate as he is, despite people not really giving him credit for it. But the chin up, the recklessness, the bodily movements that come with believing and knowing you're that good reflect someone who might make a mistake against someone who might be just the perfect skills to counteract what he's really good at. You know, I think if this fight had to stay standing for 5 rounds and Khabib isn't able to take down Gaethje, we're going to be watching something very different than people think.
Agreed. That's a very, very interesting take on it.
And I think, let's now throw the odds at us. But based on what I said, I still thought that, based on our Khabib argument, that he would sit, in the plus 300s. But, I think Vegas is smarter than that. I think they see that angle. I think they know that angle. I think that they will give enough credit to Gaethje for those things, because to the not so casual fan, they're there, like you mentioned, right? The fighters, the big fans, and the people who watch the sport a lot are really saying that. So looking at a plus maybe 250, a plus 280 makes sense there.
Your initial reaction was actually spot on. Khabib is a minus 385.
Yeah.
So there will be, about plus 325, plus 350 up on Gaethje. And I only see that line growing as, like we said, public play. Everybody's taking Khabib. Let's be real here.
Crazy.
So,
Crazy.
we definitely might see some really good odds on Gaethje.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've explained this to you in so many different ways, both here and before. There just isn't enough for me to say that this isn't the man to give him the best run for his money. And if that, Tony fight wasn't proof of anything, it's that the accuracy, the pounding, it takes a toll. Khabib, if this man cannot take you down, you're in for a hell of a fight, man. Like, that's all I'm really concerned about. And speed-wise, wrestling technique-wise, that's what's going to be really cool, right? Americans versus Dagestanis. Like, if this turns into a wrestling match, woo, you best believe the hardcore in me is like on the floor drooling, like just absolutely loving. Man, if you're telling me that I'm watching 5 rounds of Gaethje and Khabib roll, I'm down, bro. I'm down. But I don't think we will.
Yeah. And I think, this is specifically one of those ones where we're going to be watching and be like, I don't see a minus 400 in here. You know what I mean? These two are a lot closer than these odds dictate. So.
And you said it best,
stay
right?
tuned.
The action plays that part. So everyone's going to take Khabib. And so that's probably a blind lay as well, So that's what we have to kind of keep our eyes on. And, man, don't be surprised if Gaethje becomes a public play for us just based on those odds, man, because we should have made Ortega a public play, and we didn't.
Perfect. So, stay tuned for our plays. This was an exciting card. I'm looking forward to this one very much. There's a lot of good fights on there. So I'm gonna let you take us away here, brother.
Well, I'm really proud of you for doing so much research for this card. I mean, it shows your excitement. So let's get those clipped and let's get those out, because Paisan has put in that work this week, people. So, we've got a lot of guys to look forward to. There's a lot of power on this card. There's a lot of guys hoping to make the next level jump. So, keep it locked here. We're going to be talking about this card for the rest of the week. We got a bunch of picks coming up for you guys. We're hoping to get like a last-minute kind of video recorded together that kind of touches on all the final details we go through that makes us so good at what we do. And so, follow, subscribe. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. The Kaizen. He's the Paisan. I'm the Suki Scoop. Let's get it, bro. Another big weekend ahead of us. Keep it rolling, baby.
Love you, man.
Love you too, homie. Let's go. Peace.
Peace.